Okay. Turquoise, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that name. I want to say thank you very much for letting me know that. I did try before I started the stream, I did test everything. The microphone was working. But at some point when I've gone live, it stopped working. So I have spent quite some time obviously talking to myself, and you guys that are watching I guess have been a little bit bored. I very much apologise for that. I am very sorry about that. I don't quite know why it's happening, but thank you for letting me know. I shall have to try and keep an even closer eye on that in the future. I want that to be what I'm trying to do is thin this bone down. It would be quite funny if I hadn't just spent probably anything up to 45 minutes talking to myself, I guess. Just for some reason, OBS decided it wasn't going to talk to the microphone analog to digital converter. USB was working, the microphone was working, the microphone interface was working. It just OBS. Can't really say anything but OBS. These wing bones on both sides are a little bit thick and a little bit tall, and so what I'm trying to do is just shave them down carefully so that I don't destroy them. But they're a little bit too sort of prominent and standing out at the moment. Of course, now that my microphone's working, I probably don't have much to say anymore because I've just said it all. So if anybody has any particular questions about any of the art forms that I do, and whilst the details on most of them are below the stream window, those are the ones that I've done on stream so far, apart from one which isn't there. Feel free to ask. But the art forms or crafts, arguable as to which how you might describe them. There's this, which is carving, relief carving. There is pyrography, using a heated tool to cook the sap or cell contents. I'm not quite sure how you describe it. The resin in the wood, depositing it on the surface of the wood. It turns it a nice brown, and then it glazes the wood. That's a monochrome art form. There is what else? Scraper board. That's a black board which you scrape the surface off of to reveal white, and depending on how you do that and the techniques that you use, you can create nice shades of anything from pure white obviously down to almost black, so you can get quite detailed images in that way. It's also a monochrome art form. I do love monochrome art forms, by the way, as you might get the impression. Also, I do punchcraft, and punchcraft is an art form or a craft where you take something that looks a bit like a giant hypodermic needle, and you literally punch that through the material, and in doing so you drag a thread of acrylic or thin acrylic wool or thick acrylic cotton through the hole, and then draw the needle back, which leaves a loop of thread on the other side to make up the picture. So you're punching a pixel through, if you like, although not as regular as pixels in a photographic image, for example, but it is effectively building a picture pixel by pixel. It's actually a technique which is very close to a way in which rugs are made commercially on big looms. It also I also do jewellery making using aluminium rings to do that, making bracelets and necklaces and anklets. Not made any earrings yet, but or rings, but they may come later. Also get involved in quite a few other art forms on top of that, which I haven't yet done on stream. So we've got things like glass engraving. So a sheet of glass. Shallow engraving means we don't particularly go very deep, probably no more than about 1 millimeter generally. Creating images from that. I use a high-speed rotary tool for that, and I can also use the same tools on wood as well, so I can rotary carve on wood. Neither of which I do at the moment on stream because I need to use an extractor fan when I'm doing those, and that's behind me, and I can't get a camera there. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but they create very fine either glass dust or wood dust, which isn't great for your lungs, of course, so hence the extractor. Generally speaking, I also prefer to wear a mask at the same time, but wouldn't be able to do that if I was streaming. I'm also an airbrush artist. Well, I can handle an airbrush, whether I'm an artist or not, that's somebody else's decision, I guess. Good evening, Lizard Cell. Welcome to the studio this evening. I was about to say you should have been here about a quarter of an hour ago. You could have been listening to silence. My OBS decided to stop listening to the microphone. It was one kind watcher, I guess, because he wasn't listening or wasn't able to list, who let me know that there was no sound coming out, which was really annoying to me, the fact that I tested it before I went live as well. Anyway, how are you doing, Lizard Soul, this evening? I'm making these wing bones a little bit less prominent. do it with a slightly small. Actually, I could do it with a slightly more deeper gouge. Irish Lurker, good evening. Yeah, I have in the past forgotten to turn the microphone on, but this time I explicitly tested it because I don't quite trust this camera at the moment. So I'm explicitly testing before I go live that both cameras are working and that I get sound. And I'd done that this time, but somewhere between testing it and actually going live, or 3/4 of an hour after going live, OBS just decided it wasn't going to as I say, listen to the microphone. Anyway, that's still a bit thick. Probably won't do anything about it though. Oh, you're just stuffing your face with... Oh, your tummy, okay. With a nice pizza. Was it last night? Or the night before? It's Friday today, so... On Wednesday. I had a pizza on Wednesday. I had to work it out then. I knew I'd had one this week sometime. A nice, what do you call it here? Pepperoni feast. So it's a pepperoni pizza with more pepperoni on it. And I also have capers and olives as well. So I just walk into the pizza shop these days and it just says usual and I just go, yes please. Not that I actually go in that often, but I always get the same thing every time. I've actually been going to that pizza shop now since 1988, so that's quite a long time. I'm glad to say their standards have not dropped, even if the size of the pizzas have. Yep, this bit obviously needs a bit more concentration. My tongue's coming out. So, anybody got a nice weekend planned, or is it just a whatever comes up weekend for everybody? I've got some housework to do tomorrow, and I'm kind of hoping it's not going to be too hot to do that. At the moment up here in Yorkshire in England, it's kind of looking like it might end up being a thunderstorm tonight. The weather appears to be closing in, and the humidity is going up as well. So what sort of pizza do you like, Lizard Soul? What pieces? No, pizza. You're busy playing something else or watching somebody else at the same time, aren't you? No, I was just saying, what sort of pizza do you like? Then, since you've just had a nice one. Yeah, and whether the dog was barking to Gus. Yeah, cats. Well, cats don't bark, but you see cats will stare and they'll stare at something. And they'll watch it. You can't see what it is they're watching. And they'll just go as though there's nothing existed and they don't care anymore. It gets quite weird when you see that happen. Margarita, that's just cheese, isn't it? If I remember rightly, the margarita. I kind of like slightly spicy things, but I avoid anchovies. I hate anchovies. Actually, I dislike any fish with bones. Now, not all fish has bones, but the little ones like that, which come with the bones, and I hate bones. I've had discussions at work with people in the past about pizzas, and it gets almost religious. Boiled egg's not bad. My wife likes spinach, but I'm give or take it. Yeah. In 28 years, you know, I'm kind of like the same. I think I've had the same pizza since. Oh, it must have been at least probably 1990. Yeah, somewhere, another local pizza shop, somewhere between 1988 and 1990 introduced these. They call it Pepperoni Feast. I'm not actually sure they still have it, but I just call it that. I just continue to call it that, and they continue to make it up for me. Yeah. Oh, that's. I mean, if you like it, then you like it. I mean, that's the B. That's a complete argument in its own right, isn't it? I mean, you can't argue with the fact I like that. My wife can't describe. Can't describe. She can't decide. Sometimes she quite like pizza like that, perhaps with the 4 cheeses pizza. But she kind of likes cheddar and mozzarella, lots of red cheddar, and occasionally she'll have ham and pineapple on it as well. I just like a few extra flavours. Right, those wing bones will do me for what I want to see down there. Want to do a bit of work on these. These are just still a bit too prominent. They're not. That one's a bit thick, but these are a bit too prominent. This end one I'll round off once I undercut. There we go. Yeah, I don't like raw mozzarella either. It doesn't. A lot of people I know like the buffalo mozzarella, and they'll just eat it like that. But I just can't. No, cooked on the pizza, yeah, is lovely, but not raw as you describe it. A lot of cheese. Well, apart from that, a lot of other cheeses I don't mind actually. I like quite a few things like Edam cheese. I quite like that sort of texture, but I'll literally go for almost any cheese actually. The one with the blue veins in it, I can't remember what that's called. Quite like that one. A lot of people don't like the sound of that, of course, because the blue is mould. But I think that's an acquired taste on that particular cheese, but I do like that. And other sorts of cheeses do I like? I like a bit like the brie cheeses, the softer cheeses. Not all of them, but I don't mind most of them. So I'm quite. Could you describe it as cosmopolitan? I like a fair range of cheeses, but yeah, just buffalo mozzarella. No, thank you. Quite like feta cheese as well, but that can be very variable. Feta cheese, once it's been soaked in olive oil, so it's not quite as salty. Because of course it's, if I remember rightly, feta cheese is made in salt water, or using salt water. Kind of fascinating sometimes how actual cheeses get made, and just how you, you almost get so many different flavours of cheese from what is effectively very similar materials. Can't do it these days, but at one time I used to be able to do, take a whole fairly large block of cheese, just sit down with the cheese, and cheese is a bit like chocolate. The thinner you slice it, the nicer it tastes. It's a bit of a weird thing. It's something to do with the air mixing in it, I guess. But if you can grate cheese, and the finer you grate it, the nicer the cheese will actually taste over taking a thick block and biting into a thick block. Chocolate's exactly the same way. If you grate chocolate, finely grate it, it tastes a lot nicer than eating a block of it. Lasts a lot longer as well. So there's a tip for you if you like lots of chocolate. Get a cheese grater out and grate it. The problem is, of course, you have to then eat it with something like a spoon, because you get your fingers in there and of course they just melt the chocolate. But of course, if you do something like grate down a Yorkie bar or something like that, it kind of defeats the advertising on it. Yorkie bar for men, grated into little tiny slivers. Couldn't quite see the advert with a truck driver and a bowl with a grate with cheese in it while he's driving along, could you really? Oh dear. Right, having lowered this bone down on this side, I need now to round off the top again. That will do me on that one. Now that bottom bone's not too bad. The top one isn't too bad either. Just a couple of places to tidy up a little bit. Now this one bone here does look quite thick to me, so I want to try and reduce the size of that. Grain problem there, I've got to get it from the other side. Yeah, just try about You know, I mean, you can even do it with a knife. You know, a few slivers with a knife. Just try it and see. You might be surprised. Still looks really thick, does that? Okay, that looks a bit better. Okay, I think that will do for around there. I'm not going to get those very well, so we shall tidy up these areas. wonder if I can get in with the other gouge here. The wider gouges are easier to just nip the tops off of slide angles than it is trying to get the little tiny thin one in. Right. Okay, let's clean that off a little bit. Oh yeah, a little bit more tidying up just around this particular bone here. Remove just some of the straggling bits of wood. So I think most of the main carving there has now been done. Which means that it's now sort of time to do the undercutting. I'm just doing here now is just shaving off a little bit of wood where the pencil mark is, so I lose the pencil mark. Almost certainly if I tried to use an eraser on it, I'd probably just spread it around rather than remove it, which is why I'm using the chisel to just scrape off a very fine amount of wood. Trying really hard basically not to remove any wood at all. Don't want to dig in, I want this to be really fine scraping. In fact, you can remove pencil from paper in the same way. If you use something like a scalpel and scrape it, you can actually scrape the pencil marks off, because you are actually of course scraping away the surface of the paper. it becomes a note to self as well, not to apply pencil when you're close to the finished carving shape, so that you don't end up having to carve it off. Don't really want to apply. I suppose if I get something like a kneaded rubber on it, it might work. I don't want to apply a normal sort of rubber, as it will tend to open the wood pores and actually change the surface texture of the wood a little bit. There we go. That will do, I think, for there. We might come back to that a little bit. But now we're on to the undercutting phase, which is going to prove interesting. Effectively what I'm going to do here is go all the way around the wing, or as much away on the wing as I feel is reasonable, and cut inwards like this, for example, on the back and there, so that you get more of an impression of the wing actually not being joined to the backboard. You can shut the window, shut the curtains if you want, it should be locked. Excuse me a minute, I'm just going to shut some curtains, and I'll put a light on in here which will make it a bit brighter. Not the ones. That's it, thank you. Right. Where to start? I'm going to start. Here, I think. No, I'm going to start there. Now, as I make this this edge thinner, I have to be careful not to lift up this edge, because if I do, it'll crack off. Before I got the face cam, I didn't actually have to worry about things like me sticking my tongue out, which is what I do when I'm concentrating on things. Of course, now it kind of looks plain silly, of course, on camera. So it can make you a little bit self-conscious sometimes, talking with a camera on your face. I know you almost certainly can't see what I'm doing here, but I will give you a view shortly when I've done a bit more of it. What I should really do here is move this clamp, actually, because it's a little bit in my way. I shall do that in a moment, and then you get to see what it is I've been doing down here. Oh dear. That's coming along nicely. excuse me, let me unclamp this, and I need to move the clamp anyway, so I'll give you a view of what it is I'm doing. Okay, now if you have a look, what I'm doing is undercutting this here. So as you can see, I get my fingernail underneath. Now what it means is effectively you get a shadow across here that you don't get here and here really, because of the solid edge. And if you look at it, I mean, if you're looking at this angle, you sort of can't really see it, but if you look just slightly off angle, I mean you're there at sort of about 30 degrees, you can start to see under the wing, whereas here you see the actual wood itself. The camera's not great for this, but in person, and so because you can start to see under the wing, and you see a shadow which is cast by the wing itself on the wood, it actually looks like the wing isn't joined to the wood at all. And in actual fact, it's only 1/4 of an inch or something like that underneath there, 3 or 4 millimeters cut back, but it's enough to give that impression. So all I need to do is now continue it around all the rest, and that's basically what I'm doing now, and that's almost the final stage of it. We've then got some background cutting to do, but this will sort of lift the piece off of the wood and make it appear to separate. In fact, some of this I can probably do actually even without needing to clamp the piece down, which will make it a lot easier to do. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about these the tips itself, tips of the wing here themselves, these fingertips, because of course they're relatively speaking quite fragile. What I'm going to try and do is see if I can apply a little bit of separation first, just right down at the bottom, just see if that will achieve a similar looking effect, or at least shape it a little bit. Using this V-shaped gouge in here because I can use just one side of it, which is a bit like a flat chisel. It's not quite, but it's a useful thing to be able to use in this space, because I've got a very tiny edge on it. This is where frustration can set in, because I'm trying to remove a small amount of wood, and I can't actually get the chisel to sit where I want it to sit to remove that bit of wood. it keeps slipping to one side or the other. So I'm experiencing a little bit of frustration at that point. Okay, I'm starting to be able to undercut that a little bit. Just under this finger section here. It may be enough. Well, we shall see. I'm going to see if I can remove a little bit off the end here as well, because that way, if I can separate the tip and only the very tip, then that might just maintain the illusion. Okay, we'll see how that goes. See if I can give you a, because I'm now working on this side, and just try and give you a little bit better view of what it is I'm doing. Otherwise you'd just be looking at a static image more or less with a chisel moving in the background. So, cutting inwards and downwards, creating these slivers at the bottom here for the moment. And then come back this way and cut those slivers off. And then I can go back in and push further down towards the baseboard. And then again go back in and cut them off until I actually get down to the baseboard level. Now here, just underneath this finger, I can't really go too far under because I'll actually join it on the other side, and I'll end up with a hole underneath. Now whilst that'll look quite good, it will actually be quite weak. Okay, so I've got that. These things often, or can be called, like shadow lines as well, because they create like a shadow under them, or the impression of there being a shadow there. I mean, if you look at the difference in shadow here and here, there's a sort of different quality to it, which is because, of course, the space underneath. that isn't here. Now if you remember what the shadow looked like a moment ago, you see this now looks blacker, more sharper, and it is actually, it literally is because the wood's been cut away. What you got with when the wood went straight down is it was a fuzzy looking shadow because of light bouncing off the wood sides down, and it sort of made it not quite as black, and that's why the undercut looks so much different, if you like. Your eye sees it because of that sharper, blacker shadow that you didn't have before. That is a little bit why this edge here becomes a bit woolly, because it's not undercut quite as much, because there's more wood here than there. We might see if we can do something about that. And we might not. Okay. We shall do a bit more. And again now I've got to try and undercut around here. I might actually have to get the knife out to do some of those areas just underneath there. Actually, I'd be better off using this one if it'll go in. Switch from the V to the U shape. I was using the side of the V, and it's quite hard to control it on a rough surface like I've got here. The U isn't greatly better, but it is better to control. It's a bit easier to control. We'll come back on that one anyway. I'll just do a little bit more around the wing shape itself. And I want to undercut the edge of this like I did the other one, so we'll just cut that back like that. So again, the edge just sort of stands away from the wood. A little bit careful of this edge here. Now, one of the side effects of doing this is that this rough edge that I had down here has now, of course, disappeared. And so I don't need to worry about finishing that edge off as much as I did before, because it's hidden. And again we've got that hard edge shadow and a slightly softer one here. So some tiny work to do, but we've sort of undercut the lower edge of this wing panel. So 3 wing panels here. Undercut the lower edges of them. We'll probably have to come back and do a little bit more tidying up. So we've started that. Let me zoom out. So that wing starts to look a bit more believable now as an actual wing. You'll see it again when we do this top edge as well, because of the undercut on there. So if you sort of look at that sort of angle, you see the right hand wing, you can see the wood. On the left hand wing you can't, you just see the shadow. So that's kind of the difference. It's more noticeable here because with the camera you can't actually see that well underneath. I can, so I'm looking from the same angle you are here, and basically I can't see the wood of the wing. I can just see the baseboard, and so to my eye, if you like, it could go all the way underneath and I wouldn't know. Anyway, it's now almost 10 o'clock here in the UK. I'm going to leave it for tonight. I'm going to have a rest. It's a bit warm here. I'm going to cool down, have a cold drink, do some work on a website, I think. I will try and do some work on a website. Watch a couple of streams before bed. So thank you all for watching. If there's anybody watching who would like to follow, I of course would encourage you to do so, so that Twitch will notify you when I go live. You also, if you want, rather than having Twitch do that, you can have Twitter do that by following me on Twitter, because a tweet goes out when I go live as well. On the other hand, if you just want to try and catch me, you are quite welcome to do so. In exactly 22 hours from now. That's 8 PM British summertime, 1900 hours GMT, or whatever your local time is. Subtract 2 hours is the easiest way, rather than trying to add 22. Just subtract 2 hours, and that time tomorrow night I should be live. It may well be that I will be live tomorrow afternoon. That really depends on lots of things like weather and jobs that I'm doing in the morning. And if that is the case, then that will probably be in about 14 hours time, 1400 hours UK time. I'll let you look that up for yourselves. Of course, a tweet will go out as well. And tomorrow, if I do come on in the afternoon, we'll be making some jewellery. So I've got this chain here, which I need to finish, and I'll probably have a go. I've got a necklace to do in some nice brown and blue rings, and I may also try my hand at something else depending on how quickly we get through that. But so there's that tomorrow afternoon. In the meantime, again, as I say, thank you all for watching. It has been fun, if a little quiet tonight, but we've got quite a bit of work done. We're getting quite close to the end of this now. I have enjoyed carving it, but it will be nice to see the end of it and move on to something else. Have a good night, everybody, and see you later. Cheers.